differences are there in your approach to writing for Paramore and for solo projects? And Kiefer also had a similar kind of question. How do you decide which ideas become Paramore songs and which ones stay as Hayley Williams solo projects? And how do you tell them apart from all the other creative musical ideas you come up with, which is a tricky business, I suspect.
Yeah, I mean, there was one song on the project that I thought was going to be a Paramore song. I don't often bring Paramore songs don't often start with me. I always kind of enjoyed top lining to, with Paramore. I kind of like, I receive music, or we're at practice and I hear something, and I kind of like to enter into that space from that vantage point. But with this, I mean, we obviously started a lot of things differently, but it's a really good question because I think it's a gut feeling, and that's a hard thing to explain. This time period in my life, I think it felt really obvious that I needed to make something that was like, this is a necessity. There's like toxins in my body, and this is how I'm going to puke them all out and, sweat it all out and be done with it, hopefully. I don't know, check back in a year, but
Hayley Williams has been in the music industry for over 20 years, rising to fame in pop-punk band Paramore. Ego Death at a Bachelor Party is her latest solo album, being her first independent release. Coming out on her website on July 28th, but being released on streaming platforms as 17 standalone songs on the 1st of August. Hayley has said in her interview with Jack Antonoff on Musicians that Ego Death at a Bachelor Party came out of her like word vomit. It was something she inherently needed to release, given the current state of the world and our political climate, as well as things going on in her personal life. On July 23rd, 2025, the Nashville public radio station WNXP reported that a new song by Williams would be premiering that night, with a video of a person holding a CD which had the words Metazapine and Glum written with a marker. Metazapine ended up being the song played that night. On July 28, 2025, the singer uploaded 17 new songs to her official website, which were only accessible via code that was sent to fans who purchased a product from her hair dye company. The website featured a similar style as 2000's Microsoft Windows desktop displays, including the unordered tracks in an MP3 file format above a yellow background with pictures of her dog. Around 24 hours after its publication, the collection was removed from the site with a disclosed message saying thank you for listening. Williams then surprise released the 17 songs individually for streaming on August 1st. In an interview with Billboard, Williams' manager Leah Hodgkiss said that the release marketing was motivated by their idea to make music tangible and an experience again. The 17 unordered tracks then went on to be used within fans' playlists, with the option for fans to submit their playlist to Hayley to help her decide the order of when she did properly release the album. I haven't seen a rollout done like this really ever. It was interesting to watch and clearly did also work for the promotion of Ego Death, as it has been highly talked about since release. Some fans were a little disappointed in the official track listing, but I do think this was natural to happen as everyone has different opinions. The album stands at 19 songs, meaning this track by track is going to be very long, so strap in. The album starts off with Ice in My OJ, made up of leading pop-punk-esque drums and guitar, making it an in-your-face, full-on intro to the album, seeing Hayley screaming "I'm in a band" repeatedly in the chorus. Hayley faced a lot of stigma while in Paramore for apparently being the centre of attention, not seeing her bandmates as equal, etc., which was all untrue and not what was happening at all. But also the media within that time portrayed Paramore as just the frontwoman, which was Hayley. The spotlight wasn't equally shared by press, and that was not Hayley's fault at all, but she received the shtick for it. So seeing her screaming "I'm in a band" could be her reclaiming the media's thoughts by telling people she knows she was in a band. She wanted the spotlight to be equal among the band members, but it was out of her control. But it could also signify how, because she is now independent, it can be solely about her artistic vision, and that is also beautiful. A lot of the themes on these 19 songs show Hayley looking back at her life this far and healing from it, For instance, on this track, Hayley sings about the dumb motherfuckers that I made rich. The music industry has always been known to chew young women up and throw them out, but in Paramore's early career, that really is what people tried to do to Hayley specifically, while also profiting off of her musicianship. Glum is quite an interesting song. It's melancholy, with a solo, haunting, strummed acoustic guitar playing throughout the track, which details in the lyrics how Hayley does not know what she is doing. On my way to 37 years, I do not know if I'll ever know what in the living fuck I'm doing here. Does anyone know if this is normal? Hayley has been open throughout her career about her struggles with her inner voice, her mental health, and her struggles with the celebrity label imposed on her, something she continues to do on this album. In the verses, Hayley's vocals are vocoded to sound almost sci-fi-like, perhaps connoting to her inner self-critical voice, which we'll get more into on later track Negative Self-Talk. The chorus is a punch to the gut with lyrics stating, "Do you ever feel so alone that you'd get in a blow and no one would know?" It's hard-hitting penmanship from Hayley, however unsurprising that it is considering Hayley is one of the best modern lyricists around, inspiring a plethora of musicians with how she approaches her writing. Kill Me is a track about familial trauma and how selfish it can feel to be the one to break a generational curse. Save yourself or make room for us. Summing up the choice you have to make as to continue holding on to that trauma or saving yourself. Carrying my mother's torment, I think I'm where the bloodline ends, is again a powerful sentiment, one honestly not talked about enough within modern media. How painful and harrowing it can be to make the choice to essentially end a bloodline to end the line of suffering continuing. These lyrics are placed over a traditional indie rock guitar rhythm, with layered vocals in the chorus that really crescendo, with the Kill Me and Soldier ad-libs sounding like desperate, pain-filled cries. I really love the guitar at 149 to about 210, and how sonically it connotes the message of someone breaking down over this familial trauma. Whim is the feeling of realising you're in a new stage of your life and have grown through the pain tremendously. It is very reminiscent of early noughties pop, with it feeling like Hayley is both speaking to her younger self, who she has been very open about trying to heal through this album, while also speaking to her fans who have grown up with her directly. Baby, take it easy, you're always on the move, something in the stillness gets you to the truth. Tazapine is a prescription antidepressant, and this song details Hayley's relationship with the drug and sees her question, "Who am I without you now?" Something a lot of people do struggle with after being on prescription drugs for mental health purposes. However, what I really do love about Hayley's songwriting on this track is how it does truly sound like a love song. That if someone stumbled across it and didn't pick up on the concept, they may think it is simply a song confessing love to a partner, with lyrics such as "I could never be without her, I had to write a song about her." It's a love song concept flipped right on its head. Heavy drums and screaming guitar riffs come bursting in on this track, reminiscent of 90s Evanescence and the more nostalgic sounds of pop punk. The chorus shows in detail what Metazapine gives her. Metazapine, you make me eat, you make me sleep. Metazapine, you let me dream, you let me dream. All regular human activities, eating, sleeping and dreaming, but one's often taken for granted when you aren't struggling with your mental health. Again, this songwriting poses more to the question of who am I without you now? Would Hayley be able to do these things without her prescription? Is her prescription making her human? While it's a fun, nostalgic sounding song, the question it poses is rather layered and personal. Disappearing Man is a reflection on emotional abandonment, unreciprocated love, and the painful process of letting go. The lyrics explore Hayley's struggle to connect with someone who remains emotionally distant and ultimately vanishes from her life. Even the song title itself acts as a metaphor. Disappearing Man shows how someone actually leaves her life and disappears, and also the emotional distance with someone physically there. The lyric "So It Goes" could be a reference to the emotional death or ending of Hayley's relationship. It shows an acceptance of loss and something disappearing from your life, but it also signifies the inevitability of death, which equalises all things. The use of "So It Goes" flattens the emotions connected to this feeling, the same way death flattens the status of a person, their meaning or memory. No matter how special a moment or connection was, it's subject to the same erasure. Hayley is calling back a lot to her older work on this album, both solo and within the band, but the lyrics on Disappearing Man, 'Cause I Know Better Than to Hold My Breath for Too Long, could refer to Dead Horse from Petals for Armour, where she talks about the relationship with her ex-husband and their divorce. Every morning I wake up from a dream of you holding me, underwater, is that a dream or a memory? Held my breath for a decade. Hayley seems to have learnt from this relationship not to hold on to something that's no longer working and to recognise when it's time to let go instead of enduring emotional discomfort for too long. Love Me Different shows how Hayley has come to a realisation that her mental health can play a detrimental role in her relationships, and if she doesn't learn how to be whole by herself, it's going to be endlessly difficult to be complete and present within a relationship. Endless hours of therapy, 2 prescriptions, no good routines. Guess I'm the one who's got to love me differently. Sonically, it is one of my favourites. It holds a weird synth loop that adds an interesting layer to the song, while in the bridge there is minimal production, with some strings coming in. It's the most emotive and pulling part of the song. Brotherly Hate has a St. Vincent We're All Born Screaming vibe to me, with the way Hayley performs the vocals to the distorted guitar sound. Brotherly Hate is rumoured to be about Paramore's drummer, Zach Farrow's brother, who left Paramore on rather bitter terms. But overall, Brotherly Hate is about the bitterness and stubbornness some people can have. You could find out you're alone if you keep fucking around. Again, as I mentioned earlier, Hayley was blamed for almost everything that ever went wrong in Paramore, including Zach's brother leaving the band and the fallout between the two. She's speaking out a lot about this in press interviews for this album and actively reclaiming the narrative, which is powerful to see and for herself to do. Negative self-talk is my personal favourite on the album. As I mentioned earlier, Hayley has spoken a lot about her mental health struggles, and on whim it could be argued the vocoded vocals are her inner depressive voice. But negative self-talk does exactly what it says on the tin. It's about her negative, depressive inner voice that talks consistently negatively about her. Negative self-talk, a veteran self-taught. Instrumentally, it's refreshing. Simple guitar, a shaker, some bass and harmonies with strings coming in on the closing half. It's a sonical, beautiful song as well. Hayley has dealt with loneliness throughout her life, but she became specifically vocal about it after her divorce in 2017. In 2019, she detailed how she felt post-divorce, when she decided to move to an off-the-grid house by herself and truly, properly look after herself. When it really hit, I felt like such a failure. I felt embarrassed because I knew that I shouldn't have gone through with the marriage, and we had already dealt with a lot of the heaviest parts of being a couple and why things were bad. I just hurt. I had no trust left whatsoever. I knew I shouldn't have done it, but I did it anyway. That's why I felt like I had to stay. The reason I ended up deciding to leave is I had started to have a lot of suicidal thoughts. I was thinking about death all the time. I was thinking, what is the point of anything ever? Why is this supposed to be the best time of my life? This is terrible. I cared about my husband like a brother. That's the best way that I know how to describe it. I knew that wasn't right. Doing it and actually separating and getting a divorce. I'll never forget the moment that I walked into my house with a box that said fragile on it with like a plant in it. And maybe 3 other things. I mean, I left everything. I was ashamed of myself and I was also mad, but the anger had already melted into depression because I didn't let it come out. I still remember that moment, looking at the door and looking at my box of things and thinking, this is what I deserve. I deserve an empty, cold house that is infested with bats. This was all right around the album release too. The Hard Times video, the Told You So video, going to Kimmel. I was flying back and forth to this empty house, yet I was like on TV. I mean, thank God the songs were transparent about the stuff I was feeling, but I don't know, I was living 2 very different realities. Hayley had to overcome this inner self-talk and learn how to be herself again. When she sings Sung Over the Bones of You on this song, it connotes exactly that coming back to life. Singing over bones is a metaphor that is associated with the story of La Loba from Clarissa Pinkola Estes' Women Who Run With the Wolves, a book that Hayley has referenced before in her previous solo works, citing it as an inspiration. In the story, La Loba, the old wolf woman, sings over the bones of skeletons she collects, bringing them back to life and transforming them into wolves to be set free into the wild. The metaphor represents the process of bringing back to life, revitalising or recreating something that's lost, has ended or been forgotten, often through creative expression and deep connection and letting go. It signifies finding healing, strength, and wholeness by gathering fragments of the past and giving them new life through song, story, or other creative acts, which is exactly the message of ego death. Hayley is reclaiming her life, pain, and loss in the only way she knows how, which is song. Ego Death at a Bachelorette Party is one of the more political charged songs on the album. Hayley on this track deals with complex feelings about her hometown Nashville, Tennessee, a town that has had its fair share of racist issues. But Ego Death at a Bachelorette Party is also about her dealing with becoming famous so young. I'll be the biggest star at this racist country singer's bar. The lyric, "Too big for my fishes," feels like a reference to the lines in Ain't It Fun? You're not the big fish in the pond no more, you are what they're feeding on. Perhaps connoting to that unrifled confidence Hayley had when Paramore first started, of feeling like no one could touch her. She was the big fish. Then, as she grew emotionally and spiritually, she realised she was actually too big for my fishes, as in the music industry and the dumb motherfuckers that she made rich, as mentioned in Open Up Ice in My OJ. Hard is a track about struggling with letting your guard down around people in your life because of past traumatic experiences. Hayley became hard to crack, hard to really know, realising that nothing is a given and not everything that glimmers is gold. I can't get soft because I'm too hard is sung in the chorus. She feels as though quite literally she can't let people in anymore. Hayley has mentioned in several interviews, for instance for Zane Lowe, how difficult it is for her to be vulnerable, having gone through tough experiences. Furthermore, only listen to testosterone music, I had to kill my feminine just to do it, could depict how Hayley had to camouflage her true self, a feeling brought on by growing up as a young woman in a music genre made up primarily of men. She has mentioned in a few press interviews for this album that looking back at her early career now, she doesn't really know how she did it. For instance, she was the only female performer on Warped Tour for most of its time running, and how she became almost the most masculine woman she could to hide her fear in those scenarios. Discovery Channel takes a sample from Bloodhound Gang's popular song The Bad Touch. Although Bloodhound Gang's original is full of silly and satirical innuendos, Hayley's tackles the feelings of depression and hurt that come along with the animalistic acts of sex and love, detailing the imminent breakdown of Hayley's current relationship and how her partner didn't want to get into the relationship unless he knew for definite they would make it. You said we shouldn't even begin, I can't heal, you keep ripping me open, unless we know we're going to make it. You said we shouldn't even begin, I can't feel you're ripping me open, unless we know we're going to make it. Again, there is a possibility that this could be a callback to Crystal Clear from Petals for Armour. Here we go, gonna risk it again, let's hope it's the last time. We don't know how this could end, let's hope it won't have to. But unfortunately it did end, and now Hayley is trying to heal in peace, but people, her ex-partner, the media, ex-friends, and possibly fans keep ripping her open, as she details with the lyrics, I can't heal, you keep ripping me open, while she just wants to be left alone. In an interview with New York Times' Popcast, Hayley further states that the song is about Paramore, specifically the need to tear it apart in order to truly heal and grow, similar to how she's had to come to terms with her faith and religion, hence the need for this solo album. It is healing on her own time and her own terms. True Believer is the most politically charged song on this album, reflecting the state of America currently. With a haunting piano that almost sounds church-like, Hayley sings about the gentrification of neighbourhoods in Nashville, but also towards bigoted and fake Christians. Along with the religiously based capitalism of megachurches in America, Hayley sings The South Will Not Rise Again, which is a direct flip on the head of Republicans that use The South Will Rise Again. Again, clever lyricism comes into play here. On the verse, Hayley sings, they put up chain link fences underneath the biggest bridges. They pose in Christmas cards with guns as big as all their children. They say that Jesus is the way, but then they gave him a white face, so they don't have to pray to someone they deem lesser than them. Line by line, Hayley is facing current political issues head on. Line 1 details the gentrification and the demonisation of the homeless. The second line details America's issue with gun crime, also a clever use of the lyrics guns as big as all their children, when America unfortunately has an issue with school shootings specifically. The third line details the racism hidden under the guise of religion, especially Christianity, and the last line detailing the hierarchy and capitalist mindsets churches in America have. It's a commendable song showing how outspoken Hayley always has been and will continue to be about the ongoing political and human rights issues that our world faces. Zissou is a reference to Steve Zissou from The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, one of the favourite movies of all the members of Paramore. The movie inspired the creation of the Parahoy cruise, which Paramore used to do with fans. In 2018, one of the ship's rooms was reserved for a screening of The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. A water-based metaphor is used on this track. I keep telling you the water's fine, you show up in a scuba suit, so come out to the deeper side. Throughout Hayley's work, she has used a lot of water-based metaphors to further her points within her lyrics. Initially, it came about in the context of abuse in Pool by Paramore, and Dead Horse, which she discussed in an interview relating to recurring nightmares of drowning that she had while in an abusive relationship. Zissou has an extremely down-tempo and melancholy sound. It sounds as if Paramore's 2017 album After Laughter actually reflected its lyrical coverage in its sonical sound. Dream Girl in Shibuya feels like facing something you have been avoiding for so long. Familiar but foreign, a liminal feeling. It plays into the archetype of a manic pixie dream girl, mysterious, emotionally attuned, which Hayley was often described as by press and fans alike in the earlier days of Paramore. But ultimately, this desperate need to keep up this archetype was eventually broken down and led to Hayley's self-reflection. Should have stayed a mystery, sipping on Japanese whiskey. In the lobby bar, I could say I gotta leave, but let's not let that come between us. Would it make you want me more? She's facing her past, how she was seen and how she was presented, and is coming to terms with it all. There's also an interesting layered part to the vocals on the second verse, where Hayley sings the main lyrics, but then on the offbeat brings in the ad-libs. It creates a distorted call and response. Just my silhouette pressed against this view, get to the 7th floor. I wonder, do you miss when having me felt brand new, get to my door. An elevator ride, slowest of your life, get to the 7th floor. Blood Bros is a harrowing track about Hayley's unconditional love towards someone even after they ultimately left her. Hayley's battles with the desperate hope for reconnecting, asking, would you come back to get me if you had the chance again? Despite the pain, Hayley sings Blood Brothers covered in paper cuts with a bond like no other, was it ever enough? Suggesting that even in suffering there's a deep, unshakable connection that might never have been enough but still endures. It reminds me of the phrase death by 1,000 cuts, which is a metaphor for a slow decline caused by many small problems. When she sings Brothers covered in paper cuts, it's been a lifetime of being chipped away at. Similar to Zissou and other tracks, Hayley uses water as a metaphor for her relationship/love. On Zissou, she is asking her hesitant partner to join her in the water to strengthen their relationship. Here, she watches that water dwindle little by little until there is hardly anything left, reflecting a lack of vulnerability/trust, which may have slowly led to the relationship's end. Filled up to the brim, pour a little out each day till it's not quite empty and we swim just above the drain. These lyrics imply darkness, pain, or trauma inside. The question is whether the other person would still dive into that mess to be with them. It's a similar concept to hard and negative self-talk, where Hayley views herself as the lesser of the two in her romantic relationships and struggles to open up. Would you rush to the bottom of my black tar heart? I Won't Quit You is a song about struggling in a relationship, set over an acoustic guitar with a single piano key acting as a grounding bass within the song, almost setting the tone of the love not fully being lost, or the light not fully going out. Hayley uses a lot of sci-fi space metaphors on this song. Stranded here on Mars, what's the odds you'd get stuck here too? Signifying how her partner is also struggling but she really couldn't tell. Furthermore, she says lonely astronaut is going to cost, and now I'm an alien to you, and references E.T. with Phone Home Baby, perhaps showing she is in uncharted territory and never thought this would happen to her and her partner. The lyrics in the chorus sound very similar to traditional wedding vows. Come hell or heaven, angels or devils, I won't move and I don't care what happens after, I won't quit on you. An interesting spin on the traditional premise of marriage and committing to someone. Throughout this album, Hayley has thrown a lot of the traditional premises and concepts on their head. It's quite refreshing and innovative to see. The song also acts as the preliminary end to the album, which after the shouting, pleading, desperate ad-libs in the last chorus, the song wraps up on the lyrics Everything Changed. This is Hayley's way of acknowledging that the emotional turmoil she's worked through on the record has ultimately changed this relationship for the worst. Despite willing herself to not quit on this person, she finally lands in a place of defeat. The following and final track, Parachute, sees her expound on this final end of the relationship / fall from space. Parachute is more heavy instrumentally, being similar to Metazapine, Ice in My OJ and traditional Paramore. The lyrics summarise the feeling of frustration at surrendering and facing a lack of complete security in a close relationship, in this case indicated by the metaphor of a parachute. Hayley reflects on times where she would have happily run away and surrendered to this unnamed relationship, but is now faced with despair and regret over what could have been. I thought you were going to catch me, I never stopped falling for you. Now I know better, never let me leave home without a parachute. I thought you were going to catch me, I never stopped falling for you. The lyrics, tell me what was the moment you decided to give up. You could have told me what you wanted, I would have done anything. Hayley is both wishing she did more and also that her partner communicated more. However, this narrative is almost that of writing from an unhealed, unreliable narrator here. She doesn't truly know what she would have done if her partner was more honest, if her partner told his feelings earlier. It's all from an unreliable narrative. There's also a switch in the lyrics from Watch Me Fall versus Watch Me Fly towards the end of the song. Hayley has done enough work on herself to know she will be okay on her own, and that is the best option for now. Good Old Days was released on Friday the 24th of October, a new track for the album. The song almost has an R&B swing to it. It's looking back on Paramore in a different light. Earlier on this project, she was looking through quite a cynical light and healing her inner child, but this song acts as a direct reference to Paramore's track Hard Times from the 2017 album After Laughter. In it, Hayley sings about the rough period she's going through, and I still don't know how I even survive hard times, and I gotta get to rock bottom. In Good Old Days, she's implying that the years that seemed like her worst during the writing and recording of After Laughter now contain some of her best memories of the person she's singing about. We could sneak around like we're on tour, even if that's all you want me for. You could call me Miss Paramore. The Miss Paramore lyrics act as a double entendre, as she is famously known as the lead singer of Paramore, and the word also means secret lover. On the physical listing for this project, there is still one more song to be added, meaning there will be another end to this album rather than Good Old Days, which I am very excited to see and listen to upon its release. Ego Death at a Bachelorette Party is quite varied musically and has a few bold swings, yet remains a really cohesive body of work, unified in the feelings it evoked from Hayley and her listeners due to her intense and expressive lyrical prowess. If an alien was to land on Earth tomorrow and you had to introduce them to Hayley Williams, this album tells the trials and tribulations of one of the greatest living artists, making it such a powerful album that beautifully summarises her career and life this far, with Hayley firmly closing the book and healing from that. The world is her oyster once again, and I cannot wait to see what she does with it.